Hello, thriller, Halloween, and horror lovers, and welcome to Summerween. Me and Amanda have decided to do a tag video where we go over some of our spooky reads, Halloween inspired reads, inspired by Gabby Reads and Olivia Reads a Latte. They do Summerween every summer, I think for 4 years now. And I personally love fall, love Halloween. I love all of it. And there's the mascot, by the way. And I feel like in the summer, I hate the heat. It was 90 degrees today. I wish it were a cool fall day. And instead I get the heat and humidity. And so this is our reprieve from the summer heat. And we get a chance to talk about some of the things that Amanda and I love, which are thrillers. I do have some horror, I believe, in there as well, because how can you not with Halloween? So she and I have come up with 6 tags that we are going to go over, book picks both of us have. Why, hello there. Today was turning out to be a bust because it was all kinds of rainy outside, but I am in front of the library, which I had originally wanted to do because it is now sunny, and so sunny I need my glasses on. So I am at the library because me and Amanda are going to be doing Summerween, and I wanted to look at some things for our tags that we're doing. Sorry, I had to pause because apparently I was losing my voice. So anyway, I'm going to be going in here and doing some research for a couple of the tags that we're doing because nothing came immediately to mind. And I've done far too much damage at Barnes & Noble, and I don't want to go to another bookstore and buy more books because my last trip there was a little expensive. So here we go in the library. Hopefully it's not too crazy quiet in there, and I might be able to record talking in there, but I might have to just do some recording of books and do talking later. So here we go.
Hey guys, so for Summerween, Jen and I, as you've already heard, are doing a Summerween book tag for our video. I'm actually out traveling this week, so I do not have my books at home to go do my book tag. So where's the next best place to do a book tag? A bookstore. Here we go.
As you saw earlier, I went to the library today. I did get some footage of some of the books that I didn't own because of the list. I don't own any of them. I'm trying to remember what's on the list. Some people have borrowed because I read a while ago and I just never got the book back. I don't know anyone who has ever had that happen. It's not fun to not get your books back, but some of it I feel like I should own it for some of the picks, and one of them I got out at the library because I had just talked to Amanda about it today. I don't own a copy, and I saw it and I was like, you know what, it's a short read. I'm going to just get it out of the library and reread it in celebration of Summerween. So the first tag that she and I talked about is a favorite read that we read in October. And I looked at Goodreads just to see what I had read the past few Octobers. And 2 years ago, I read a book called Reprieve, and it's by James Hahn Matson. And I really loved this book. It was very unique, unusual, and the premise struck me right away, and I was like, oh, I have to read this. And it's about a full contact horror escape room, like a haunted house escape room. And there's a contest where they want to see who can get to the end of this full contact escape room and solve everything and get to the end, and you win money. I don't remember how much it was that they won, but I remember it was, significant that people would actually want to try doing this. And it sounded horrifying too. So there's a girl, they're teenagers, I believe, and one of the girls works there and has like an inside. And then I don't feel like I'm giving a spoiler here, because if I remember correctly, and I just refreshed my memory to read the description, they talk about, because the way the setup is someone gets murdered, and the book is set up that you're getting interviews almost like by the police, or I don't know if it was FBI or something that was investigating, and they are interviewing everyone. So you're kind of reading it through some interviews as to what happened when this murder happened. So it was a very interesting, it had a lot of commentary on capitalism and how fear is used as entertainment. Just to think, even like Final Destination movies and horror movies in general, and escape rooms and haunted houses. And haunted houses over the years have gotten crazier and crazier. So this book had a lot of commentary and all that, and I felt like it was a really well done book. I gave it 4 stars. So I had read that October 2 years ago, and I did find it in the library, and I have some footage of what the book looks like. So here it is.
So our first book tag is one of your favorite books that you have read in October. And actually, October of last year, I read Verity by Colleen Hoover, and it's the only Colleen Hoover book I've ever read, but it was one of my favorites that I've read in the month of October. I ended up giving this book 4 stars on Goodreads.
The next tag that we have on our list is favorite horror book. And mine, as of late anyway, because I feel like sometimes it's hard to just pick, but I just went with the first one that came to mind because I feel like that's telling. And I read this within, I think it was like a year ago, last summer, crazy enough. Maybe it was for Summerween last summer. Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. And I absolutely love this book. I remember I had told a bunch of people about this book. I couldn't stop talking about this book. I believe I had told Amanda about it, and when we were talking today, she said she did buy it, but she hadn't read it yet, and she should read it. I feel like it definitely fits the theme, especially with Summerween. It's a perfect book, very creepy. I wish I had this copy. I didn't find it in the library, which I was very disappointed, because a huge piece of this book and why it works so well, you can't do this one on audio. And I also don't think it would be good as an ebook, though the pictures are in ebook, but I feel like the full experience of this book, you need to have the physical book. And it is in paperback now. I saw it when I was at Barnes & Noble. So part of this book, there's a woman, she's young, she needs a job, and what's funny is it's very similar at the beginning of The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, because it's someone who had been abusing drugs, but she is trying to get clean, and she's clean now, which is a little different than The Housemaid, but both young women trying to get a job, and they end up doing a babysitting, like house sitting type job, and get hired right away, which should be a red flag, but they're so desperate for a job that they're like, yes, I'm good, I have a job, I'm not going to worry about it. So this woman gets a job with this couple who have a young son, and strange things start to happen, because I always feel like I had a joke with someone, like, there's always creepy kids, you got to watch the kids, they're always creepy. So this young boy is in his room, like with the door closed, and she hears him talking and giggling, and she's like, who are you talking to? And he kind of just keeps it to himself and a secret, and he starts to draw pictures, and the pictures in this book are so creepy. Like, they creeped me out, especially when he's drawing who he's talking to. And you're like, you're talking to that? I'd be out of there. I'd be like, I'll find another job. It's good. I'm out. But no, she stays on. She's determined to find out what's going on. And of course, you find out what's going on. And I am not going to ruin it. It's the type of book that I feel you definitely need to read to get the full experience and see the pictures. And I wish I could show you a couple examples right now. I'm hoping that when Amanda's editing, or I can show her a couple of the pictures that we can share right now, just so you guys can see some of the creepiness that is going on with this book. But I love this book. I believe I gave it 5 stars because I finished it. I mean, I talk a lot about how long it takes me to read books, and when there's a good book, I'm usually, especially a good thriller, it's taking me like, a day, 2, 3 max, and I finished this one in 2 days, like literally 2 days. I think I was up reading and couldn't go to sleep because it was that good. I just wanted to get to the end. So that is my favorite horror that I'm using for my tag.
So I am now in the horror section and looking for one of my favorite horror books. Until recently, my favorite horror book was Stephen King, It. I read this book a long time ago and I loved it, and it was my favorite. But my new favorite is actually by an author called J.H. Markert, and it is called The Nightmare Man. And I do not see it here in this bookstore, but I will put a picture up on the screen. That is my new favorite. That horror book is so good. If you have not read it yet, then you need to go out and read it.
All right, next, and prepare yourselves, is scariest book cover, read or unread. And this one for me is unread. And looking at the cover, I felt like I would for sure have nightmares if I were to read this. But the title is Nothing But Blackened Teeth. It's a horror book by Cassandra Khaw. I don't know if I'm saying it right, so hopefully I didn't butcher it. But I did find it at the library, so I definitely want to make sure that you guys see this book cover so you know what I'm talking about. So without further ado, here it is.
So for a book with a scary cover, this is not a horror book, but I think this cover is pretty scary.
Tag is a cover that is a favorite book of ours that reminds us of Halloween. And 2 came to mind, and one actually I didn't read, though I have read Grady Hendrix, but How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, and they did have that at the library, so this is what it looks like. The second one that and of course that one I think speaks for itself. It's a big haunted house on the cover with the right coloring. So that one reminds me of Halloween for sure. And I do want to read that book. The second one I have read and I really liked. It had so much promise. I only gave it 4 stars. I feel like the ending was a little rushed. And I feel like it also left it open for a sequel, which is good. But it had so much promise and I just wanted it to finish strong, but the book is so good, and it's called The Nightmare Man by J.H. Markert. And the front of that has a scarecrow. They didn't have it at the library, but I know we can insert it and it can go right here. And as you can see, it looks very much like it reminded me of that Supernatural episode. I'm a huge Supernatural fan, but there was a episode in the first season, I believe, and it was about the scarecrow. Supernatural also has they have a couple like good Halloween episodes. Anywho, The Nightmare Man I feel was a really good book. I do think Amanda talked about it in her year wrap up. She probably read it earlier this year because I probably went on about it to her about reading it, because when I started that book, it scared, like genuinely scared me when I first read that book. Like the first few chapters, I remember, and it was almost like I was a kid again, where I had trouble going to sleep because it scared me that much. And by the end of it, I mean, you get used to it. It's still kind of creepy, and even thinking about it now, it is a really creepy book. But I really, really love that book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. But it was about it starts off with an author at a book signing, and someone comes in and commits suicide in front of him. And it's like a James Patterson type author. Like he writes about, well, maybe more Stephen King, but I felt like they were comparing him to James Patterson. And he writes about like nightmares and about things that scare people in the middle of the night, but people are accusing him of taking their nightmares and writing them as if he can somehow know what they are and bringing them to life. And then if I give any other kind of explanation, I feel like it'll ruin it. And I don't even remember how much Amanda said in her video, but I highly recommend it. I think it's really, especially if you like horror, creepy things, you like being scared, it's perfect for all.
For my book tag of a cover that reminds me of Halloween, I have 2 I want to mention. The first one is Ghost Eaters by Clay McLeod Chapman. And this is a very scary cover, but it reminds me of Halloween because how kids will go around trick-or-treating with a sheet as pretending to be a ghost. And this just reminded me of that. Also, The Spite House, which is a newer novel by Johnny Crompton, and this reminds me of Halloween because it reminds me of like that house in the neighborhood that's scary on the hill that no kids want to go up the hill to ask for candy. So this book kind of reminded me of Halloween because of the haunted house on the hill look.
The next tag, I feel like I struggled with the most. Nothing was coming to mind for me, and the tag is favorite summer thriller, and nothing is still immediately doesn't really come to mind. And when I started thinking about it a little more, what kept coming to mind for some reason was when I was younger, like 11, 12, 13. I don't know how much into my teens I was reading, but Christopher Pike. And anyone who has read, and I know there's been reprints, so I don't think it's only people, those books came out, I want to say like 80s and 90s, and I know there's a bunch now still in reprint and stuff like that, but when I read those, the vice grip that Christopher Pike had on young me, crazy. I mean, I devoured those books, and it's probably where my love of thrillers originally started, because they were just so addictive to me. That, and on the other hand, was Sweet Valley High, which nothing thriller about that. But with the Christopher Pike, my favorites were, and as soon as I start thinking about them and looking them up, I just got so nostalgic and wanted to read them all over again. And of course the library they had a Christopher Pike like adult novel that had nothing to do with the ones I'm talking about. I believe I don't know if they're in reprint anymore, to be honest. I don't even know the last time I have seen them, but they remind me of summer, and I don't know how many of them actually took place in summer, but I'm sure I was reading them in the summer, which maybe fits this tag. But some of my favorites were the Remember Me. It was a trilogy, and even looking at those covers again gave me so much I wanted to read them again. And another one called Spellbound. One was called Whisper of Death. And they, like, some of them had such cheesy titles. And R.L. Stine was another author at that time. I didn't read, he wrote the Goosebumps series, and though I didn't read those, I did read some of his like teen thriller ones, but nothing compared to Christopher Pike. Christopher Pike was like, oh, I was in love with those books. So those are going to be my choice for the summer thriller that even though it's not really something unless you want to buy them on eBay. But I'm hoping someone out there remembers Christopher Pike or has read Christopher Pike, because I feel like he should be appreciated. Even though they're kind of YA, young reader YA, but that's my choice.
For my summer thriller pick, I wanted to do Karen Slaughter Pretty Girls, but I don't see a copy here at the store to show you. I will put a picture of the book on the screen. This is a wonderful summer thriller. If you guys have not read Karen Slaughter, then you really need to. She has a good series. It's the Will Trent series, and I think the 13th book in that series is actually coming out this summer if it's not out already. But Good Girls is a standalone novel, and it is amazing. If you guys enjoy some of the books that we have read and talked about on this channel, then you need to go out and pick up that book.
Last but not least, one of the prompts from the Summerween official 5 prompt list was a manga graphic novel or novella. So we decided in for our 6th prompt that we would do scariest novella. And of course, the first thing that came to mind, and it was the book that I said earlier that I had to get out when I was there, is The Lottery, Shirley Jackson. Shirley Jackson, if you have not read Shirley Jackson, you need to read Shirley Jackson. She wrote horror, but it's so different, I feel, than a lot of other horror out there. She has a way of writing that leaves you so uneasy and shocked, but like understated. And I feel like she's just really good at writing things that just seep in slowly and then grab you. And The Lottery especially, and I don't even feel like I want to say much about it, because it would, in my opinion, ruin it if you haven't read it. But it's one that very short. It's not a huge amount of pages. I'm gonna reread The Lottery actually. I wanted to before this video, but I mean, it's vivid in my brain. I don't really need to. I wanted to read it again, but part of me almost doesn't want to, because it's just so, makes you so uneasy and just horrified. So if you love horror and you haven't read Shirley Jackson, you definitely need to read Shirley Jackson. I was talking to Amanda about it today. But that's my pick for favorite novella. That's the scariest. And what's funny is when I was there, I also was just like scanning the shelves, and I found an interesting one. I was like, well, that's weird that I found that. So I picked it up, because again, it's only stories. It's not like a full book, but this one's called Haunted Nights, and actually said on the back of it, Trick or Treat. But there's some interesting authors on here. And some sci-fi fantasy authors on here that I didn't realize would fit the theme. So I was also going to read this for some of the days that we're celebrating Summerween.
For the scary book tag novella, Jen and I thought that might fit in with the manga comic book novellas prompt for Summerween, because we don't really read manga or comic books. But my scary novella is called Rolling in the Deep by Mira Grant. I could not find it in the bookstore, so I'm just gonna pop it up here on the screen. But this book is a very short prequel to a series about evil mermaids, and they are scary. So that was really fun. It was kind of like a bookstore scavenger hunt. I really enjoyed doing this book tag. If you guys want to see more book tags, please let us know below what kind of book tags you like to see, or if you have any suggestions or books you want us to feature, or a certain tag you want us to do, let me know.
So those are all of our prompts. I hope everyone has a fun Summerween. Tell us what you're reading, what you're doing to help participate, or what you're doing to help beat all this summer heat and pretend it's fall. So thanks for listening to all of these, and tell us all your thoughts too. Happy Summerween.